Palestinian territories, they are not a country, first of all. It's a territories. It's never been a country. We know that. It's been invented by the KGB in 1964 as a people. Before that, Palestinians were just Arabs and Turks and other kind of people from the region, but they didn't carry the title Palestinians. Actually, until 1948, a Palestinian was a Jew. And if you told an Arab living in Jerusalem that he's a Palestinian, it would be an insult because Palestinian meant a Jew.
More than 40,000 Palestinians have now been killed in Gaza, a majority of whom are civilians. And these numbers are from the Palestinian Ministry of Health, but they are backed up by the United States, by international organizations. Humanitarian conditions in Gaza have degraded so much that diseases like polio and hepatitis A are now spreading. We have seen countless children be orphaned. We have seen countless mothers lose their children. How much is too much, sir? At what point is it time to end this war?
Well, we'll end the war when we achieve our war goals of making sure that Hamas can't repeat such atrocities. But we're fighting this war in a just war with just means. In fact, with means that no other army has ever fought. No other army has taken the precautions that Israel has taken, sometimes at great risk, to make sure that we minimize the number of casualties. You talked about polio. We enabled now massive vaccination of polio. We want 90% of the Gazan people of Gaza vaccinated. I think 200,000 I think were vaccinated today. We've put in 1 million tons of food, 1 million tons of aid, 700,000 tons of food. That's unheard of. We've taken, because we think that every civilian death is a tragedy. For Hamas, every civilian death is a strategy. For us, it's a tragedy.
Welcome to another episode of Counterculture, the show that stands at the intersection of reason and faith in the battle against sentimentality. The coddling of Islamofascists by the Western media, as illustrated by CNN's Jeremy Diamond in that testy exchange with Bibi, illustrates what peaceful pluralists are up against, and not just in Israel. The new Axis powers, Iran, Russia, China, share an old penchant for totalitarianism, and it seems like only Israel and America currently stand in their way. Putting the war in Gaza in historical context, both past and present, is the subject of a new documentary entitled Pogroms by French-Israeli filmmaker Pierre Rehov. Pierre joins us now. Pierre, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it. So just in terms of the characterization of the Israeli war effort that you're seeing from Western media outlets like CNN, and Bibi's response to that, the otherworldly precautions that Israel is taking to try to avoid civilian deaths. And yet there really is this coverage of the Israeli war effort as, yes, Israel has a right to defend itself, but no, Israel isn't doing everything it can to defend itself in a way that sort of comports with Western sensibilities. You know, how do you react to sort of this murkiness, this moral equivalency that the media treats this war with?
Well, first of all, as you know, there is a lot of anti-Semitism involved. Israel being the only country whose it's very easy to surf on the wave of anti-Semitism if you want to be against Israel. If Israel was a Christian country or a Hindu country, I guess we wouldn't have the same problems. There are many reasons why this is happening, and I'm going to try to just describe three of them very briefly. Reason number one, as I just said, anti-Semitism. Reason number two, Israel is a very moral country, and the people are very moral, including the army, and we are trying everything we can not to harm Palestinian innocent people or Palestinian civilians. And I'll give you a very simple number. If Hamas is telling the truth, and actually 40,000 people died in Gaza, 18,000 of them were fighters or terrorists. So the ratio of collateral damage versus actual fighters being killed is roughly 1-to-1. When America, of any modern country, is fighting in a civilian area, and all the wars today are conducted into cities. It's not the time of you go to the big field and you fight army against army. Everything is happening among civilians. When America, France, and you name it, any modern country in the world fight in those zones, the ratio is usually 1-9, 1-10. So Israel is doing an amazing job. But when you have, Qatar spending thousands of billions of dollars just for their soft propaganda around the world and pushing all the colleges and universities to be against Israel, that has a certain result. And the result is we look like the bad guys when we're trying to just defend ourselves and just trying to survive after the most horrible massacre in almost the history of the modern world. Palestinian territories, they are not a country, first of all. It's a territories. It's never been a country. We know that. It's been invented by the KGB in 1964 as a people. Before that, Palestinians were just Arabs and Turks and other kind of people from the region, but they didn't carry the title Palestinians. Actually, until 1948, a Palestinian was a Jew. And if you told an Arab living in Jerusalem that he's a Palestinian, it would be an insult because Palestinian meant a Jew. But what is happening over there, and this is part of my job to know about it, is that if you go to the Palestinian territories as a journalist, you have absolutely no right to tell the truth. You have to follow the agenda of the Palestinian Authority or of the Hamas, or else they kill you, they beat you up, and you want to keep your job. Let's say you're working for CNN, and your job is to talk about the conflict between Israel and Gaza. Where do you have to be? Not in Tel Aviv. You go in Tel Aviv to, for the parties. You have to be in the Palestinian territories. This is where the action is. But if you go there and you say something which is against the Palestinian cause, you better not come back. The next time they're going to kill you. So you want to keep your job. So you play the game. You play their game. So 3 good reasons why nobody in the world is actually telling the truth about the conflict. And those reasons are understandable, but they are terrible.
Well, there's a couple of things too. I mean, just to put it in some comparison, some comparative context. I mean, the arguments they're making in the direction of Israel, despite what Israel is doing, I don't hear anybody saying, the Ukraine should be providing food to the Russians. Ukraine should be providing sewage lines and encampments for the Russians. Ukraine should be telegraphing where they're going to strike next so that Russian civilians, but that's exactly what Israel is doing. And Israel is in the same position as Ukraine. Russia invaded Ukraine, and the Palestinian and Hamas, I should say, committed a terrorist attack on Israelis in Gaza. So, I mean, the parallel really is true, and the differing moral standards, as you mentioned, in terms of what's being applied to Israel versus what's being applied to Ukraine as they defend themselves the same way Israel is defending themselves, is really stark. That's number one. Number two, I wanted to get your reaction to the prospect that, look, Hamas and their sponsors like Iran could end this war tomorrow if they return the hostages and America put pressure on Qatar to say, turn over the Hamas leaders that you're essentially housing in Qatar the same way that the Pakistanis housed Osama bin Laden. Turn them over. Otherwise, we're cutting off your access to American universities. Otherwise, we're coming after you. So, I mean, we look at these state sponsors of terror or these collaborators like state sponsors of terror like Iran or collaborators like Qatar as sort of our partners in peace, but they're not our partners in peace. And that seems to be another lie that the Western media is telling.
Yeah, you're absolutely right with everything you just said. And there are a couple of more reasons, but I should add to what I said before. Number one, anti-Semitism. Zionism is nothing but for the will of the Jewish people to have their own land, their own little nation in their land of origin. Nothing more, nothing less. Just let us have a country where we were born thousands of years ago. That's it. We don't want to harm nobody. And, in 1948, Arabs refused the deal, refused the partition of what was left of Palestine. People must also understand that Palestine, as described as the word Palestine, was Jordan plus the West Bank, plus Gaza, plus Israel. This was Palestine, but the Brits gave 80% to the Arabs, so they would make Jordan. So only 20% of Palestine was left, and supposedly was left for the Jews. But as you know, this is part of the history. What happened is that the Palestinians, or in those days, took the side of the Nazis. They took the side of Adolf Hitler, and their leader, Haj Amin al-Husseini, was a close friend to Himmler. So they started working in the direction of trying to exterminate also the Jews of this region. Haj Amin al-Husseini was, their leader, hated the Jews as much as Hitler hated them, and he was welcome in Berlin to, first of all, put together Arab armies to fight against the Brits and the Americans, against the Allies. And secondly, he was on the radio talking to the Muslim world all day long, to tell them, revolt against the Jews, revolt against the Brits, kill the Jews, revolt against the Americans, etc., etc., etc. So that's one, and another very important reason. Now we're going to have to be a little bit political, which is right now, it's election period in America. And, the Biden gang, the President Biden and Kamala Harris, and above them, the big monster called Hussein Obama. I never wanted to see a country called Israel to exist if it could, maybe not Biden himself, but certainly a lot of people around him, and certainly Barack Hussein Obama. They simply hate the very idea of Israel. So, if you want, in a conflict that the one we are seeing right now, and I live 20 miles north of Gaza, so I'm part of it in a way. I mean, for the first 3 months of the war, I had to fall asleep with the sound of rockets and bombing every day. And despite my old age, I have a little daughter, 2 years old, and each time, 23 months old now, and every time. There was a rocket and a siren, whether in the middle of the day or middle of the night, we had to rush to the shelter. Every house in Israel has a shelter, which is built against any kind of bombing and all that. So we had to rush to our home shelter. And what do you do with a 1-year-old little girl when there are bombs, above your house and the sirens and all that? You have to play games. And we had to dance in the shelter, pretending that everything was all right. In the meantime, you had this, it was completely a crazy situation to hear the bombs sometimes falling, like a couple of miles away from our home or above our roof. And we had to dance and sing with a little girl in the shelter. Okay? So that was our situation. And I'm sorry I'm going a little bit away from what we were talking about, but just to describe you, for people who don't know, what is the life of an innocent Israeli living in this country and having to deal, like we had to deal, not only since October 7th, for more than a decade. You have to remember that there were colonies or settlements in Gaza, and in 2005, Israel decided to withdraw from Gaza and take away, force 10,000 Jews who were living in Gaza to go away and come back inside Israel. And we left to the Palestinians everything they needed in the world to build themselves a future and a country. We lived greenhouses, factories, you name it. Only thing we destroyed were the houses where the people were living, so they wouldn't have the trauma of seeing Palestinians live in the house that they bought and built a few years before and where the family were living. So we destroyed all the houses, but left everything else. And as you know, instead of creating a paradise, they received hundreds of millions of dollars from the international community. Instead of doing that, they just built 500 kilometers, 400 miles of tunnels. They bought all the weapons you can think of in the world with only one goal: to kill Jews. Not to kill Israelis, not to kill whatever they would call, to kill Jews. They wanted to kill Jews. So now, in a situation like this one, when you have an American administration trying to be balanced, well, poor Palestinians and they need humanitarian help and don't be too harsh on them, it gives, a big smile on the face of the Hamas leaders. They think we are a bunch of jerks. We are in the middle of the war, and our number one ally, instead of sending us 10,000 times more bombs that we need to get rid of to control the situation and get rid of Hamas, they tell us, be careful, don't go to Rafah, don't do this, don't do that. And Hamas is laughing. So there is this political situation thanks to Mr. Obama and now the people who cheated the White House in 2020 and are certainly going to try to cheat their way again to the White House in a month or in 2 months. You know, those Democrats who are, as you know, as much as I know, even though I'm not living in America, they are not the real people of America. This is not America. This is a bunch of, I don't know what you want to call them. And as far as Israel is concerned, they have to, please their extreme left. So for that reason, they don't dare saying the real truth about what's going on here. And also the media are lying. And also on the top of that, the United Nations is lying. On the top of that, Amnesty International is lying. So just a small country, very small country. It's not even 1% of the Middle East. And everything else belongs to Muslims. And even that, we are supposed not to have it. And American administration, this one, not the one of President Trump, but Biden and all the gang around him, instead of doing the right thing and telling us, okay, go ahead and get your hostages back and go to Rafah and fight as much as you need to fight. The war would be over in 3 months. Instead of that, we had to pay attention to this, pay attention to that, and a year later, we're still at war. And again, eventually, my little daughter will have to hear sirens and rockets in 1 day or 2. I don't know.
I wanted to talk about your film a little bit too, against everything,
Sure.
the backdrop of everything you just said. The film is called Pogroms, and the historical context. You made some allusions to it, how Israelis have been on that land dating back to 1200 BC. Netanyahu, when he addressed the joint meeting of Congress in the United States, made mention of the ignorance of the protesters and the discourse and the vandals on the streets of America and other Western cities too. You know, from the river to the sea, they don't know which river, they don't know which sea. Everybody has discussed this too. They have no appreciation. They're just mainly just drones that are repeating slogans someone told them to say, apartheid state and so forth. So it seems to me the angle of incidence with your documentary that provides this historical context to dispel some of the mythology that is being perpetuated is critically important. And I just wanted sort of, to give you the opportunity to color in the story here, in terms of summarizing the history of this region of the world and the Jewish people's presence in it.
Well, that's a hard task. You're almost telling me
Yeah,
to summarize the history of humanity, basically.
no, right. Well, but that's the point, isn't it? That's the point, isn't it?
No. The thing is, Judea Samaria was renamed West Bank under Jordan occupation. Let's go back in the times of King David, and King David, when he put together the city called now Jerusalem, there was no Muslim around here. There was, the Jews, and actually there was not even Christians yet. There were only Hebrews and Jews, Jews being Hebrews. So we know that there was occupation by many different other countries and empires, and the Roman Empire conquered that land as well. And the Jews are the kind of people who don't like to be conquered, and they fought back and they fought back. So in 67, actually, after Jesus, in 67 of our era, the temple, the Solomon Temple, which was built by the son of King David, and was rebuilt again, and by Herodes, King Herodes, at this very specific period of time, was destroyed by the Romans. It was not enough, because about 60 years later, there was another revolt against the Roman Empire, and this time the emperor of Rome, his name was, I'm sorry, I have a little gap in my memory, Emperor Hadrian, decided that not only the Jews would not have the right to live in his region anymore because he was tired of them, but he renamed the very country, which was in those days Israel, Judea, and Samaria, the three of them put together. He called them Palestine, as a remembrance of the worst enemies that the Jews ever had, the Philistines. It's in the Bible. So from that, they kicked most of the Jews out of there. He renamed the place Palestine, and we are in 132, in the year 132. And after that, conquest and reconquest, and the Christians and the Turks and the Ottomans, who are Turks as well, etc., etc. This country was always occupied by other people who are not Jews. But in the meantime, Jews were still living there. Jews stayed there, many of them. Either they were living there or staying there or coming back there. For instance, I give you a very simple example, which is kind of weird. In 1854, a certain Karl Marx, who was working for the New York Tribune, was sent to the region to come back with a report. And he wrote a very interesting article about the region. He said, I went to Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, there was about 15,000 people living there. Out of 15,000 people, 10,000 were Jews. But they lived under Ottoman occupation, and they live in a misery that it's not possible to describe, and nobody has been living under so much misery. And yet they are the legitimate owners of this place. But under Ottoman rules, they were treated like slaves. The women were sometimes taken, for the pleasure of the men were slaves. Everything that you can imagine, as horrible as it is, as you can imagine, happened there. So in the meantime, and now you have to go a little bit away from Palestine, as you know, at the end of the 19th century, after suffering a lot of different things, the Jewish people living in Europe, they had been through the ghetto and they've been through Inquisition. Now came the pogroms in Russia, in Ukraine, in Poland, the kind of pogroms we see on October 7, coming to the villages, killing everybody, raping the women, killing the babies, torturing again and again. And in France, there was a big trial against an officer of the army called Captain Dreyfus, who was accused of being a traitor to the nation. He was not. It was a fake accusation. Actually, somebody else took the documents and gave them to the Germans. It's another story, long story. But this specific incident led the French people to shout death to the Jews in the streets of Paris. Came Austrian journalist, his name was Theodor Herzl, and he heard death to the Jews in the street of Paris. And he understood that the Jews will never be free, and they will never have a normal life as any other people in the world, as long as they don't get back their nation. And he started the Zionist, not party, the Zionist, ID. And it took, so many years to come through. So now we jump to 1917. The British win the war. The Allies of those days win World War II. They kick the Ottomans out of the region. They are in charge of Palestine. The French take Syria, and etc., etc. But the British are in charge of Palestine, and they make a promise to give this whole land to the Jews so they could rebuild their nation. Of course, locally, some people would agree, and some other people would not agree. And the people who did agree, later on, their descendants became the Arabs living in Israel, and we have 2 million of them. And the other ones became the Palestinians, meaning their only reason to call themselves Palestinians is to destroy Israel. They have nothing else in their mind. What they want is to take Israel. And when you are saying Palestinian, no, Hamas attacked Israel, no. Palestinians attacked Israel because, first of all, World War II, you wouldn't say only the Nazis attack, the Germans attack. The rest of the world were at war with the Germans. At the end of the war, they bombed Berlin down to the ground. And nobody was sending humanitarian help to Berlin or to Hamburg or other German cities. We have the same situation here. The Palestinians of Gaza put Hamas in power. They voted for Hamas. They support Hamas. They support Hamas up until now. If not, there would be hundreds of people to tell us where Sinwar, the head of Hamas, is hiding in which tunnel, and they would also tell us where are the hostages. So as long as they collaborate with the Hamas, they are the enemy. Tomorrow, 1, 2, 10, 20, 100, 1,000 Palestinians come to us and say to Israel and say, we know what Sinwar is. We know how to give you back the hostages. We have nothing against them anymore. Be our friends. Inside Israel, 2 million Muslims live in Israel with the same identity card as I carry, with the same rights that I have. I talk to them every day at the pharmacy, at the supermarket. They are our people. They wear theirs. They have their Arab culture, Arab traditions, yet they are Israeli citizens with the same right as any citizen. Those are the Arabs who accept us. You accept us, you are friends. You don't accept us, you want to kill us. There is a say in the Torah, which is if somebody stands up to kill you, kill him first. Be the first to kill him. And that's actually the mentality of Israel. Okay, we want to be good people. We're never going to harm you if we don't have to, but enough. What happened in World War II is not going to happen again. It did happen again. So this never again is now. It's not going to happen a third time.
And so is it your sense that this effort afoot in terms of the moral equivalence that is being perpetuated by Western media and Western politicians between Israel and the Palestinians, but really Israel and Hamas, the middling that's going on that we were describing, there's sort of, to the extent that there's even any knowledge, there's sort of an erasure of the 1,000 years of history you just briefly went through. And we also, and to the extent they start even in the modern era, they start in 1948 and they go forward. This is sort of the penchant of the left, or the penchant of the Bolshevik. And I think what we see in this country, in America, is the rise of the new Bolsheviks, is they want to erase history and start over day one. So they don't have to have these complicated discussions. So they don't have to address the history that we know to be true, and the reality of who is on which side exactly when it comes to living living as a peaceful pluralist.
Well, what is interesting also, it's the marketing around it. If you go in the street and say, Palestine will be free, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Wow, it works, right? It's very simple. And now a Jew arrived and said, okay, wait a minute. I have to tell you, when King David, 2,500 years ago, and that's it. End of the story. They are not interested anymore. They want something simple. This is a generation of TikTok, of YouTube. People don't think. They just react with their emotions. And I have to say one thing, as much as I despise and hate every single member of Hamas and their supporters, they are smart. They are super smart people. They studied the behavior of the Westerners, and they have this strength that we don't have. We have the weakness of democracy, and God, do I love democracy. But it also comes with weaknesses. And this weakness is that we cannot be one man doing one thing. We have to, conciliate with this and conciliate with that. And for the Muslims, and I know the Muslim very well, I was born in a Muslim country. I was kicked out of a Muslim country with my entire family, as 1 million Jews were expelled from Muslim countries after 1948, which is something that nobody wants to talk about. And nobody wants to say, well, wait a second, where was the United Nations when 1 million Jews were expelled from Syria, Lebanon, and Libya, and Algeria, and Morocco, and Tunisia? Where was the UN? Where was the money to help us? None, zero, nothing. In the meantime, billions have been spent for the Palestinian refugees and the descendants of the Palestinian refugees. All of this is completely political, and it deals only with two matters: oil and anti-Semitism. On one hand, you have people who can provide oil at a very good price. On the other hand, you have a bunch of Jews. Who are you going to choose if you want to drive a big, expensive car? It's also very simple,
So Benny Gantz, the head of the National Unity Party, said this week that if a ceasefire is not reached, and it doesn't look good, that ultimately there's going to have to be war in the north, that Israel is going to have to confront Hezbollah. So we have potentially an expansion of this war. And so my question to you is, what are you more concerned about? Are you more concerned about Israel's resolve in terms of pursuing these terrorist organizations and ultimately their sponsor, Iran? Or are you more concerned about the West's resolve in supporting Israel doing so?
I'm more concerned about the West in general. I'm more concerned about the Western culture, Western traditions, Western identity in general. Israel is certainly the peak of the iceberg, but everything under is very concerning. When you see how people react in American universities and colleges, when you see how the media react, when you hear the kind of stupid things that people are capable of saying, when you see all those Hollywood actors who have the brain of a yellowfish, and they pretend to know everything and come to take the side of the Palestinians, and you ask them to point Palestine or Israel on the map, and they don't even know where it is. This is what we are dealing with because of the decadence of the West, and that's what worries me the most. Here in Israel, believe it or not, I'm not worried. We have the IDF, we have the Mossad, we are strong people. Even though people are in the street of Tel Aviv, it's a little bit like in America. You have 10,000 or 100,000 people parading and rioting, and you think the entire country. No, when you have 100,000 people rioting in the street of Tel Aviv, you still have 9,900,000 people who are going to work, and we're looking at those guys saying, "What are you doing? We are at war. Do we have time to fight against our leader?" I don't like Bibi. I'm not a big fan of Bibi, but we are at war. We must be behind our leader. We have no choice to get rid of Bibi Netanyahu right now instead of trying to get rid of Hamas. Again, they are laughing at us. All those left-wing mentality, ideology, we have to change the world. To change the world the way they think, you have to change the human being. And this is not going to happen because nature made us as we are, and nothing, no ideology, no communism, no Bolshevism is ever going to change the human being. So I'm worried about you guys more than I'm worried about us in Israel.
Bibi has tried to make the case, has tried to explain why America should take an interest in what is happening to Israel and at whose hands it's happening, because obviously Iran's position is that America is the great Satan, death to America. That's not the only place where death to America chants are popular. What's your message to America in particular when it comes to the powder keg that is that region and Israel being beset by multiple sides and multiple threats? How should we understand why this is particularly relevant to America when it's so far away?
Whatever happens in the Middle East is at a certain point expanding to the rest of the world through different means. Immigration, illegal immigration, is very, very concerning everywhere in the world, including in America. And if we are talking about Iran and we are talking about America, let me give you a little piece of information that not so many people know. Iran is financing the fentanyl crisis. Iran is making sure that Chinese factories are making enough fentanyl that can later on cross the border from Mexico to America to destroy American youth. Okay, so Iran is our enemy. Iran is also Americans' enemy. Not under Obama. We believe that Iran could be of the Middle East and it would be good for everybody. I don't know where it got that from, but Iran is not only the enemy of Israel, but it belongs to the axis of evil. Every Jewish life lost in Israel is lost not only for Israel, but also for America. Every Israeli soldier who is fighting against Hamas and against Iran is fighting for America with American weapons. And each time one of us die, it means that another American stays alive thanks to us. So we need more weapons to do that and to make that happen. And I've been myself living in America for quite a long time, and I love your country. And I'm very proud to say that I moved from New York, even though I have this terrible French accent. I've been living in New York for many years, and before that in Los Angeles. And when I moved to New York, from New York to Israel, I did it in a way to protect America from Israel, believe it or not, because I love your country. And, a big family when we are in the same way of thinking, with traditional values, families, hardworking, everything that the youth of today don't want. If you remember, there was a poll like in the 70s and asking kids, what do you want to become when you become adult? I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a fireman. I want to be a soldier. Now you ask the kids in America, what do you want to become? I want to become a YouTuber. So that's the decadence of the country. And that's terrible because, it's instant pleasure without any hard work behind it. And instant pleasure without hard work, you just open the door to barbaria. And this is what is happening. And barbaria is at your door. And barbaria, we are fighting it today.
He is Israeli-French filmmaker Pierre Rehov. The film is Pogroms. Where can people access your documentary, Pierre?
It's going to be out actually on October 7th for the Remembrance Day of what happened. And it will be on many platforms such as Amazon, Google, Tubi TV, you name it, almost everywhere we could have access to, but essentially on Amazon and Apple TV also.
Okay, Amazon and Apple, the film again, Pogroms. Pierre Rehov, thanks so much for joining us on Counterculture. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure, really.
Please like this video and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And please leave a comment in the comment section. We'd love to hear your thoughts.